Oh, the countdown continues until the launch publishing date of Mike Cap's book, Grinders, Baseball's Intrepid Infantry, and a lot of esteemed guests. And here in episode 5, we have a guy, or I would say he's baseball royalty, in my opinion, Jerry Hairston Sr. And the title I'm going to give you, Mr. Hairston, is the patriarch of one of 3 baseball families in the history of MLB to have 3 different generations of MLB players. That's quite an achievement. I would say, Caps, that's baseball royalty.
Well, he is. And let me give you a little bit more lanyap on this because the Hairstons are actually the biggest family in terms of professional baseball players to play. 9 members of the family, 5 big leaguers, 4 minor leaguers.
Wow.
And as we'll get to with Jerry here in a minute, who's, by the way, just a tremendous human being for any one of a number of reasons, baseball notwithstanding. They have at least 2 and maybe 3 of Jerry's grandsons waiting in the wings to become the 4th generation. Jerry, let's just start at the bottom and talk about that because having talked to Scott and Jerry Jr., your sons, about it, that they don't seem to be guys that are really little league parents and pushing these guys. Your grandsons, it seems to me, just hearing the stories from Jerry Jr. and Scott, these guys were like you, wanting to follow in your father's footsteps in baseball. I just think that's magnificent.
Yes, it is, especially in this day and age that kids can be so focused on, the sport of baseball. And like you've pointed out before, the history, it's intriguing, and they want to be part of that. And they're using the same formula that I use, my sons, Jerry and Scott, that, we're not going to be pushing, you should be doing this and whatever, just letting them enjoy the game, letting them hone their skills without pressure. And that's the key. They have to want it for themselves. And I learned that from my dad. So that's the way I treated my sons, and they're passing that along. And they're now at the point to where they're doing a lot of work because they want it. They could be doing other things, but they want to play the game of baseball, and they have the talent. So, time will only tell.
You had 14 years, and I think that's intriguing in and of itself. But you spent a lot of time in Mexico, and in fact, you found your bride in Mexico, and Mexico means a whole lot to you, does it not, in terms of baseball and your entire life?
Yes, absolutely. I love fans down there in Mexico. They were great to me. We just hit it off really well down there. And toward the end of my stint down there, my first year, I was 20 years old. One of the fans down there with a school teacher like my wife, and she asked me to come to a dinner that they were having and the teachers were having, and knew the American players were off that night. So I attended, I went. And that's where I met my wife. And the minute I saw her, I mean, as they say, love at first sight. And here we are now, 48 years later, and with the fine family. And I mean, it's truly been a blessing.
It's also interesting to note that if people go online, they can actually find pictures of you and Esperanza being married at home plate. I've seen those, and they're magnificent. Sean, you won't believe this, and Jerry's got the biggest smile on his face, and you can see fans in the background. And if memory serves me, there was a veil of baseball bats. Players had gotten on either side and put baseball bats, and you guys walked down between the veil of baseball bats, right?
Yes, that's an awesome picture. We have it too, and now it's on the internet all over the place, so we're able to see it all the time. But that was a tremendous day, and the club was fantastic to us. They gave us part of the gate that day as a wedding gift, and many other gifts that they gave us that day for our wedding that we still have today. Not the money, but
And you and Esperanza and your family, the boys and grandchildren, you guys go down there on holidays regularly, don't you?
yeah, we go down there probably at least once a year, for something or the other. We've gone twice this year, so went down for one of her cousins' 50th anniversary. So that was an awesome trip, and other things that we go down for. Her nieces and nephews down there, they're here a lot, and we're down there as well.
That's awesome. Well, Sean went to Anderson High School here in Austin. It's not even a mile from where I live in Northwest Austin, Jerry. And uh, several weeks back, Anderson High dedicated its baseball field, renamed it to Willie Wells Field. And one of the reasons I sent you the Austin Black Senators hat was because we had this celebration at Anderson High on a Saturday evening, and it was magnificent. They just uh, did so well. They brought Bob Kendrick in, of course, from the Negro League Museum, and Bob can do sit beside you, as you know, and give you 5 hours on the Negro League Museum, and you're mesmerized. You never get edgy in your seat. He's a great storyteller, and the bottom line to all that is one of the things that Bob said to me, Sean and Jerry, as I was interviewing him about the Hairston family. He said, uh, "You have to look at this logically, and they really are royalty when you consider that Sam, the elder, Jerry's dad, uh, left school at an early age and went to work at a steel mill, right in Birmingham. Is that the way it went? And then
Sitco Pipe.
yes, and then played on one of the best, probably the best amateur team, and was seen by the Negro League. Signed there first for the Birmingham Black Barons, and then on to the Indianapolis Clowns. What a story that is, Jerry. I mean, that's got to still resonate to hear Bob Kendrick say that, and to know who your dad was, and the kind of guy he was, and the gifts he gave you and your brothers and your grandsons. It just must make the hair stand on the back of your neck every day.
Yeah, it's a great story, and it really should be told because there's so many names, so many places that it really can hold the focus of anybody that's reading the story because you have guys like Piper Davis in it, double duty Ratcliffe, and I'll tell you a story about him here pretty quick. And Jackie Robinson, Don Newcomb, uh, I could go on and on. Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, all of these names, those are the associations my dad had. And saw these young players coming through as he, played in the Negro Leagues, back in the 40s. But a great story about Double Duty Ratcliffe. And the first time that I met him, I've been hearing his name since, I was knee high to a duck, as they say. I remember one night, I just finished a game in Chicago, and I was there as a rookie, and I used to take the L train back into the city. I was staying, at a hotel downtown, and I was standing on the curb getting ready to cross the street in front of Comiskey, and it was this tug at my coat, and so I looked down, and there's this older gentleman sitting on the curb, and he looked at me. He said, "Hey, Hairston." And I looked down and I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "I know your daddy." That's the way he talked. He said, "I know your daddy." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He says, "You might not know me, but I'm Double Duty Ratcliffe." And I just went, "You gotta be kidding me. I've been hearing your name all my life." And so I sat there on the curb with him. and waited for his wife. After the game, when the traffic cleared, she would come by and pick him up. And we sat there, and he told me the story about how my dad got started. As well, his career. He was already signed with the Barons, but who knows what his life would have been like if it was not for Double Duty Ratcliffe, because he was a veteran in the Negro League, playing with Birmingham. He's played with a lot of teams, but he knew what was going on with the front office and all of those things. He knew all the intricacies of the team. So he was a catcher, and he knew that the third baseman, I forget his name right now, but he was holding out for more money. And he was holding out. My dad was playing third base. He was a young third baseman. But Double Duty knew that he had just come to terms with the Barons and would be there in a few days. So he knew that my dad was going to be on the outs because, this veteran third baseman was going to be there. So he asked him, he says, "Hey, Sam, can you catch?" My dad never caught a day in his life. He said, "Hey, yeah, I can catch." Never caught a day in his life. He was up for the challenge, so he got back there, man, and caught a one-hitter, and they won. So from that day forward, he became a catcher. He said, Double Duty said, "Hey, you're going to catch tomorrow. I'm going to be sick." So he played sick so my dad could be a catcher. And the rest is history, as they say.
And Double Duty got that name because not only was he a catcher, he was a pitcher as well, right?
Exactly.
Awesome.
He would pitch the first game and catch the second game.
That's funny.
Yeah, he stories about other reasons he was Double Duty, but he was quite a character. Double Duty was.
Sean, one of the supreme highlights of being blessed from above to write this book, being able to sit down on the telephone with Jerry Hairston Sr., Jerry Hairston Jr., and Scott Hairston, and have them just go at it and listen to the stories, listen to the way they were raised in the game of baseball, a great game of baseball, and so many gifts their dad gave them. And Jerry, I want to run this at you because I think it's so tangential and so important to your story. Because knowing Scott a little bit, because he played against us in El Paso and in Tucson, and only having met your Jerry Jr. on the phone, but having seen him on television, the humility that lives among the three of you is second to none in this game. And I'll just give you an example. One of the things that struck me right between the eyes was when your dad told you when you were a little bitty guy, "We are no better than anybody else. We're working people. We just happen to be working in baseball. And we make the same kind of sacrifices or maybe more that other people who work make. And we're not going to be rich. That's not what we're in it for. We're in it because we love it." And Jerry, those lessons should be taught by every parent who has a child, as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That was our craft. That was what we did. Whether you're a doctor, a shoemaker, or doctor, lawyer, whatever, that's your craft. That's how you earn a living to raise your family. We just happen to be baseball players, and we worked at our craft, and we were just, and are, just people like everybody else. And I made sure that they understood that, because naturally you're in a neighborhood, and we moved into Naperville, Illinois when they were, just young kids, and it must have been, 30 kids within, 3 blocks of our house. And they all loved to come down. it wasn't the house, it was the backyard that really sold that house to us because I said, hey, we got the kids right here. We can see them. And my wife says I can look right. I can be washing dishes and I'm watching my kids out the back door or the window there, and they're here. They're not down the street. They're not running around the community, and that's the way we like it. And that's what sold that house to us. It was, big yard back there. They played baseball, football, everything back there. So the kids, they thought it was a huge deal. Man, your dad plays baseball. He's on the Sox and this and that and other. And then they talk about it all the time, more than we would like. So they made a big deal out of it. And that's what I told them. I said, hey, they make a big deal out of it. We don't. I'm just going to work every day, and that's it. And so I
What a tremendous lesson. What a
Yeah.
tremendous lesson to teach your children.
Yeah. Well, they never forgot that.
Well, I know both of them. I asked them both about it, and their responses were just unbelievable. And they still believe that to this day. And Jerry's got a really high profile job as the color analyst for the Dodgers on television. He's seen and known by many, many people. And when you talk to Jerry Hairston Jr. on the telephone, I'm telling you now, he's just any other guy, except he's very smart, very intelligent, and got a great set of pipes too.
Yeah, he's a great voice. And he told that story when he was probably about, I think he was probably about somewhere in 8, 9, 10 years old. I forget, the exact age, but he said, Dad, he said, I want to play about 10 years in the big leagues, and then I want to do what Hawk Harrelson is doing. I go, wow. I said, well, hey, you got to go to work. You got to work hard to do that. I mean, that's great. That's a great goal to have, and and we're going to help you do that. And that's what he did. He almost played 16 years in the big leagues, and he's a broadcaster now. So he checked all of those boxes. And there's a bunch of boxes that he checked, little mid-range goals that he had, and I think the only one that I can really recall right now that he didn't check was to be an all-star. And that was one of his goals. He wanted to be an all-star second baseman. And he was off and running toward that goal. He was leading the league. And this was probably 3 weeks into the season. I forget what season it was, but he was leading the league in stolen bases or right there, 1-2, whatever. It was back and forth. And he was batting 300. And then he had a terrible injury that really sidelined him for most of the year. And he ended up getting traded the next year to Chicago and then off to 8 other clubs. I think he ended up playing with 9 other clubs. But he had a tremendous career, and he was a help to every club that he was on. He had a great career.
So Jerry, I got to ask you this. We get to see Junior on the air, and as Mike said, does a tremendous job. Who has the best personality? I've got a feeling that you're doing this interview. We can tell you're a bright, well-traveled, just great experienced man. But we see Junior. But who has the most personality of the Hairston boys?
Well, the most personality, the guy.
Just brights, just brightens up a room, so to speak.
Well, it's not me and it's not Scott. It's Jerry. Jerry, he loves to talk, and you can give him a mic or the stage or whatever, and at family get-togethers and stuff, he'll sing and dance too. So he's a tremendous person. He likes to be seen. That's a fact. And Scott and I, we can sit over in the corner and not be seen, and we're fine. But Jerry's got the personality that really, carries the room as you speak. He's more like his mom. So, Mom, we have friends that are from 8 to 80, and they love my wife, Esperanza. And, rightly so, she's a tremendous person, and she's kind to everyone she meets, and people never forget her. Never forget her.
Somewhere up on a cloud, Sam Hairston Sr. is looking down, and he's got a huge smile on his face of what he sees going on with his children and his grandchildren. There's no doubt about it. And his great grandchildren now that these guys are coming along. And Jerry, it's always good to be around you, man. And thanks for being a big part of this book. I mean, I was at a Sabre meeting in Houston the other night, the Larry Durker chapter, and they had been briefed on who was in it and who was not, and they said it's so good for you to have the Hairstons in this because they just have not made a big deal of themselves. They're just prideful people. And you know, when Sabre people know that, and the Larry Durkers of the world know it, and the Tal Smiths of the world know it, then it's common knowledge, and it makes it even more humbling and great to know you through this medium. And I can't wait to get out to Tucson and meet you guys.
Okay, we're waiting.
Okay, we'll be out. We got to have a book signing out there someplace because Barnes and Noble will have it. We know for sure. So
yeah, we got one probably about 8 miles from us.
Well, we'll just at some point we'll gather.
Okay, let's do it.
Thanks so much for being with us, and give the boys in Esperanza a hug for us, would you please?
I will do that.
One of the greats in the world.
Absolutely.
Jerry Hairston, Sr. Thanks so much, bud. Appreciate it.
You guys
Mr. Harrison, it was a privilege. And Mike Caps, this continues to be so much fun. I wish we could do 100 episodes, but we're on the back half of this as we are quickly approaching that publishing date where Mike gets to travel across so specific baseball communities. But Grinders, baseball's intrepid infantry, and we will see you for episode 6. Until then, catch a game. Let's hope the lockout ends very soon.
Let's hope.